Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Josie's Point of View, where we focus on human interest stories from the Carolinas and beyond. Today it's Wednesday and it's February the 18th, 2026. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to my channel, I want to thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you find the information here to be informative. And if you're a returning viewer, by all means, thank you for coming back. You know, I always say the tide changes so frequently here on these YouTube streets. So you always have to acknowledge where your support comes from. And I want you to know I sincerely thank you for your support. So feel free to like and to share this video. And don't forget to subscribe. Now, I know there's a lot going on these days, and it's easy for us to get distracted. But through it all, I want to keep focus on our children. So in today's video, I want to focus on some of the major convictions we've recently had here for child sex crimes in our area. I took it a step beyond just the arrest. There were so many arrests, it was a bit overwhelming. So I decided to bring it closer to home and look at some of the individuals that we're sending away to prison for a very, very long time for their acts, despicable acts on our children. So let's go ahead and let's get started. I'll provide you with a summary here, and I'll identify some of my sources for you in the description box. And keep in mind that all of the information that I'm sharing with you is currently available in the public domain. If you would just simply do a Google search, believe me, all of this information will be at your disposal. And here's one case out of Anson County that was posted on January the 16th, 2026. Terrible case of incest, and the news headline read, Anson County man found guilty of statutory RAPE involving his daughter. It was reported that 52-year-old Richard Thomas Horn was convicted of molesting his own daughter for over 8 years, starting when she was around 4 or 5 years old. It began at night when her mom, who is a nurse, worked a night shift and the young girl was left alone with her father. And this abuse went on for many years, 8 years, it was documented. And it all came to light when by chance the stepsister found an email that the victim had been communicating with a friend discussing the abuse, and that's when Horn was arrested. And last month, a jury of his peers found him guilty of 2 counts of sex offense, 1 count of statutory RAPE, and 1 count of incest. And the judge sentenced him to 3 consecutive sentences ranging from 65 years to 88.7 years in prison. And if by chance he's ever released from prison, and I don't see how that's possible, but if he's ever relieved from prison, he will be required to register as a sex offender for the rest of his life. And this next case was prosecuted in Jacksonville, Florida, but it has North Carolina ties. And it was prosecuted by the U.S. District Attorney's Office for the Middle District of Florida. The date of this reporting was January the 16th, 2026. And here's that headline. It says, North Carolina convicted sex offender sentenced to 50 years in federal prison for attempting to entice an 11-year-old child to engage in sexual activity. And the individual in this case is probably one of the stupidest humans on the planet. His name is Jeffrey Lee Dudding. He's in his early 40s, already a convicted sex offender from convictions in North Carolina and South Carolina. Mr. Dudding was resident of North Carolina, living in Concord at the time of this arrest last year. And he was on a chat line where an individual had posted a picture of a child and said the child was 11 years old. And Dudding here began communicating with that unknown individual and expressing interest in having a good time with the child. And then to prove how serious he was, he took a video of him pleasuring himself and asked that unknown individual to share it with the child. Then they got offline and began talking about logistics, which included him coming to Florida, setting up himself in a hotel, and making arrangements to meet with this fictitious 11-year-old child. That got his butt arrested. So this time, Dubbins earned himself a 50-year sentence in federal prison, and since this is his 3rd conviction for sexual offenses, he'll probably never ever see another day as a free man. And the next case came out of Burke County, where we learned that a jury had convicted a resident of multiple sex crimes against a child and sent him away for a very, very long time. His name, Cornelius Burnett, age 56, and it was reported he had violated that child over many years. And one day the victim found the courage to tell a friend, and that's how the authorities got involved. As already mentioned, a jury found him guilty. His sentence is 35 to 51 years in prison. That's a minimum 35 years and a maximum 51 years in prison. And the next case out of Hickory, North Carolina, where we learned that a resident there was recently sentenced to 50 years in prison for, again, child sex abuse charges. And that conviction was for this man here, 64-year-old Kelly Lee Setzer, and his crimes were the production and transportation of child sex abuse materials, a case that was prosecuted by the Department of Justice, attorneys in the Western District of North Carolina. They found evidence that he was in fact the abuser on at least 4 different occasions, and that he did in fact produce some horrible videos of child abuse materials. They executed a search of his possessions and found a library of over 48,000 videos and images of children being abused. You heard me, ladies and gentlemen, a library of over 48,000 videos and materials. It was reported that many of the items showed babies being tortured. Yes, the video produced contained infants and toddlers who were being violated. And he did enter into a plea agreement where he pled guilty to some but not all of the charges. And the judge sentenced him to 50 years in prison, followed by a lifetime of supervised release. He was also ordered to pay $84,000 in restitution, which is not a whole lot considering the amount of damage he had created. And the judge ordered forfeiture of his primary residence in Hickory, the same residence where the production and transportation of those child sex abuse materials originated. What a powerful statement. And the next case came out of Smithfield, North Carolina, where a resident was found guilty and sentenced to over 20 years for abusing children over several years. So 56-year-old Oscar Medina was found guilty of multiple counts of RAPE of a child. It started out with an arrest of RAPE of one child that took place from age 5 to age 8, and it was discovered that he had been violating more than one child over many years. And we're talking about children, very young children. And the judge sentenced him to between 26 years and 33 years maximum in prison. And I'm sure if he's ever released, which is unlikely, he'll have to register as a sex offender. And then you have this case out of Wilmington from November of 2025, where this 23-year-old eventually pled guilty to sexual exploitation of a minor. He was found guilty of exploiting 2 kids that he had been babysitting. His name is Elijah Donato, 23 years old, and his actions were captured on a Ring camera inside of the home. And the kids, they spoke up as well. And he immediately uploaded information to Snapchat. So he was arrested on 2 counts of sexual exploitation of a minor and indecent liberties with a child. But a grand jury indicted him on a total of 5 counts of sexual exploitation and indecent liberties. And after guilty plea, a judge sentenced him to between 12 to 24.5 years in prison, followed by 30 years of supervision. And here's another case that was prosecuted by the Department of Justice for the Eastern District of North Carolina. You have this man here, he's 65-year-old William Justine Lewis. He's a personal shopper. He works as a shopper in Walmart. Now, he was caught by undercover agents in a chat room uploading child sex abuse material. They traced the IP address back to him. They initiated a search of his home, and they found hundreds of child sex abuse photos and videos. He pled guilty last August, and last month, January 2026, he was sentenced to 17.5 years in prison. And there was this other case coming out of Clayton, North Carolina, where the news headline says that a Clayton man was sentenced to nearly 12 years for having child pornography and of videos of him killing a cat. Now, the date of this reporting was February the 6th, 2025. And if you think you understand the direction this is going, believe me when I tell you that the truth is stranger than fiction. And I'm probably giving this case, this disturbing case, I might add, I'm probably giving it more exposure than it deserves. But this is what has been reported. This 23-year-old, his name is Nathaniel Pruitt. Police say he contacted them indicating that he was a victim of domestic violence, indicating that a family member had pepper sprayed him. And when police looked into the situation, discovered that he was beaten up because a family member saw a video of him taking the life of the family cat. Now, during the investigation, Truett confessed that yes, he had filmed himself taking the life of that family pet at the request of a stranger online. Imagine what strangers online can get you to do. He also confessed to taking the life of a stray cat and having SCX activities with these dead animals at the request of strangers online. And when deputies checked his phone, they found evidence of child sex abuse material as well as evidence of animal cruelty, so he was charged. So on January the 26th of last month, he was sentenced for the child pornography charges. And then on February the 4th, another court sentenced him for the animal cruelty and crimes against nature. That's the SCX for the animals charges. Total time is 11.5 years in prison, and then he will be subjected to 10 years of supervised probation. Now, I saw this other case coming out of Wilmington, Brunswick County. It has to do with this man, 65-year-old Scott Anthony Lewis, a Navy veteran working as an electrician. He was already a registered sex offender on probation for incest at the time of his arrest. Now, he was on probation for incest, and he was still caught downloading child sex abuse material. His sentence was 11 years in prison, followed by 10 years of supervised release. And I just want to add, as an electrician, he was going into people's homes. You really don't know the people that are entering your homes when you need services. We need to be checking. There was also this case coming out of Wilmington, prosecuted by lawyers for the Department of Justice. 73-year-old Jesse Teal, he was convicted of luring a teen into prostitution as well as creating child sex porn. Now, he was using the internet to recruit women, which included teenagers, and he pled guilty to enticing a minor and engaging in illegal sex activity. His sentence was 13.5 years in prison. Then there was this case coming out of Raleigh from December where a resident was sentenced to over 11 years in prison because he was working from home. He was working on an IT related job, and he had child sex abuse materials on his work computer. So this man, 45-year-old Joseph Dobbs, was already a convicted sex offender. He was working from home, and it was his supervisor who had access to computers remotely and found child sex abuse materials in a hidden folder on the computer. A jury found him guilty of one count of second-degree sexual exploitation of a minor and one count of failing to register as a sex offender. His time, 11 years and 2 months in prison. Then you have this 58-year-old man from Charlotte. His name is Daniel Joseph Broadway. He was sent away for 6.5 years for using people's photos and creating AI-generated child sex material. He must also register as a sex offender for the rest of his life, and he must also pay over $30,000 in cost and restitution. And last but not least, I want to end with this case here. 25-year-old man from Asheville, North Carolina, who was involved in an online relationship with a minor who lives in Maryland. He traveled to Maryland, picked up the child, brought the child back to North Carolina, and had SCX with her. Now, he was originally charged with statutory RAPE, but was allowed to plead to a lesser charge. His sentence, 16 to 29 months in prison, and then he'll be turned over to immigration authorities because of his status. So here you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Here's a summary that's far from completed, but it gives you a good example of some of the convictions for child sex crime. It gives you an example of the direction our state is taken when we identify and we can prove that our children have been violated. I wish I could bring you the actual numbers of those who have been arrested, but there are so many of them. It's a large number, and we are definitely facing a crisis. But for now, we'll continue to focus on convictions. It's more of a manageable video, and I'll try to bring you updates, at least one video every month. And that's all I have for you right now, but feel free to leave me a comment below and let me know what you think about this video, and by all means, feel free to like it and to share it. And if you haven't done so already, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel by clicking on that red subscribe button. It's on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And if you click on the bell that looks like just like this one, that's the notification bell. If you click on that notification bell, you'll be the first to know whenever a new video is uploaded. I thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.